Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is Franchise Fanatic and welcome back to the channel. And today for you guys is another Indiana Jones review. Today we're going to be tackling Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the second out of 4, soon to be 5 Indiana Jones films. Hope you guys enjoyed my review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now today, this one came out in 1984, so a few years after Raiders of the Lost Ark. And apparently, from what I've read online, this was the first PG-13 film ever made. Now, if you actually look at the thing, I don't know if that'll focus, but it says it's rated PG. I don't know how, but, you know, remember before PG-13, PG was the PG-13. That's all I can say on that. But to essentially talk about Temple of Doom, you know, a lot of people love Raiders because it's funny, it's action-packed, it's intense, it's got great music, great acting, great writing, you know, the whole shebang. And really, Temple of Doom tried to capitalize and kind of double down on all of those fronts. And does it do a good job? I think it does, but there are a few scenes where you're looking at it and you're like, could have been better, you know what I mean? Like, you take the character of, you know, Indiana Jones, you know, the main character. He's still the same character, you know, he's basically like a little bit older version of Nathan Drake. You know, he's kind of an a-hole sometimes, but he means well. He's kind of like that. Short Round, which is, I think he's in the Goonies, too. He's freaking old now. He's not like old, but he's older, so it's kind of funny. But he's a good child actor, you know. A lot of these child actors that you see, specifically Jake Lloyd, not the best, but he's not horrible. But, you know, I think the best in child acting would be, you know, Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, those three. But Short Round does a good job. You know, he does, basically the script tells him to kind of do broken English, you know, and I don't know if that's actually because he can't speak English. I have no idea. But he actually does a good job, you know, being kind of, you know, very funny, and, you know, he's just kind of like the comedic relief of the film. If you're just listening in, he does just kind of screech a lot, but if you actually watch the movie, you know, it makes sense. But going on to, like I said, recap, Short Round, good character, good actor, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't watching anything of him and being, oh, that's really cheesy or really bad. But moving on to Willie Scott, Kate Capshaw, I believe, which is funny because Steven Spielberg directed this film, and he also married Kate Capshaw. So it's kind of funny that he married the person that played Willie in his film. I just think that's kind of ironic. But a lot of people give this movie hatred and just kind of negative energy towards Willie in this film, her performance. They say that all she does is scream and biatch and moan and whine and be annoying. But people need to forget that and remember that's her character. That is what she's supposed to do. Steven Spielberg told her, you're going to do this. Basically, to not get, basically, well, I don't know how to word. When this film came out, PC culture wasn't an effing thing. So I'm just going to say it right now. Willie Scott in this film is the traditional woman. When you think of a woman, I know there's a lot of things that probably pop in your head, but one of the main things is a pretty blonde, and she's really focused on her hair, and her nails, and her looks, and, you know, comfort and coziness. That's Willie. But it's like times 2. You know what I mean? That's essentially the quote-unquote woman of the time. But again, in a more streamlined kind of comedic fashion. And I didn't find her annoying. I thought she did a pretty good job of being comedic, I think, because that was her role, you know what I mean? She wasn't, like, walking on set being like, I'm going to scream like a behemoth, you know, or a banshee. It's just that's how it's supposed to be, and I think she did a good job. Now, my only really critiques with this film would have to be the way some of the shots are directed and held. There are certain times when a shot can be held for a long time, like when you're doing a really cool close-up of Indiana Jones as he, you know, beats up the guy that's whipping that kid in the mine, and it's a big heroic shot. There are that other shot where they're showing Mola Ram, right, and he kind of does that dramatic turn to the camera, you know. It makes sense. There's a lot of things in there where you need to hold a certain shot for a certain effect. And this movie doesn't really know how to do that 100% of the time, right? You get, there's one shot where Indiana Jones and Short Round are going to be crushed by that, like, you know, like the wall climbing down and the spikes come out, and they're hitting the skulls, and Willie's reaching in with the bugs and all that. And there's a shot where Indiana Jones says, we are going to die, like that. And it's really freaking funny because it's really exaggerated and it fits the humor of the franchise so well. But the shot is held for too long. And basically it's an extra half a second to second. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does when you're watching it and when you're critiquing it. Because the shot of him he's basically making a weird face like that. But it just lasts too long. So he's just making this dumb looking face for a little bit more time, and then it cuts to Willie, you know, so it's just comedic shots, from what I've gathered over the years, comedic shots and funny shots they need to be quick. You know, you can't linger on a character's face for too long or else it'll be kind of strange. And that's what they did for that shot. There's another shot where Willie is running on the bridge in the end, and she's kind of screaming, you know, and then she sees Mola Ram and all the tuggy, and she goes, why? You know, she starts screaming like a freaking banshee. And that was the only cringy moment in the whole film that Willie gave. Because her acting like the way she does makes perfect sense for her character and the time period that she was in. Her screaming, you know, basically like, it's hard to say, I know it's a movie, but, you know, if I was running across a bridge and I was a girl and I saw that a dude that's gonna kill me, I wouldn't be like, wah, you know what I mean? I would be like, oh shoot, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't scream that, and I get it, it's a movie, she's a girl, I understand what they were going for, but it's just that was the only cringy, and it's really iconic, I don't know why. I hate the shot, but it's really iconic. Every time I think of Temple of Doom, I think of that scene where really running up and just going like this. I don't know, it's just iconic to me, it's kind of weird. But other than that, there's not too much to not like about this movie. I think, especially when we get to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there's a lot of people online, of course, going, oh, that's too much, or oh, that wouldn't make sense, or Indy survived the nuke fridge, or the aliens, or, you know, what have you. But people also forget that Indiana Jones, yes, is semi-rooted in reality, because you got, a professor, archaeological digger dude, you know, an archaeologist, punching the crap out of guys, and kicking guys, and whipping guys, and shooting guys, you know, and you got all these crazy things going on. But you also have these kind of mythical elements. You know, I'm a Catholic or Christian, whatever you want to call it. You know, so I do believe in the Ark. I do believe in God, all that crap. So Raiders isn't too far-fetched to me because that's what I believe in. But Temple of Doom, you know, you got these 3 Cully stones and they burn on fire, and a dude reaches inside of a guy's chest and pulls his heart out and it's still beating even though it's not his body. You know, there's a lot of and to the average movie watcher, you can go, oh, that's really cheesy and stupid. But that's the point. The point is that this franchise is dealing with a bunch of mystical elements. You know, in The Last Crusade, I'll cover next time, again, something that I kind of believe in, I guess, the Holy Grail. You know, this big chalice that Jesus Christ himself drank from. And then, of course, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you get the frickin' aliens, which I don't, even though apparently the FBI said, F it, aliens exist, and no one gave a shite because, you know, COVID. But basically, you know, you have all these different mythical elements. And really, if you're going to watch an Indiana Jones movie, you need to know that ahead of time. Because there's only a certain, you know, if this was like Star Wars or Marvel, you know, like if you're watching the newest MCU film and, you know, Loki, like, reaches into some guy's effing heart, it would be like, what the F's going on here? You know, that doesn't make sense. But because it's Indiana Jones, it makes perfect sense. Because it's half rooted in reality and half rooted in complete what the F is going on is. And that's basically what it is. Again, the only reason why this works, the cringiness and the kind of over-the-topness of it all, is because it's in the Indiana Jones franchise. That's literally the freaking point. That's half of the crux of this franchise, is the weird crap that goes on within it. And I do think that going forward with this franchise, and you'll see when I review the other two, I think this is the most crazy out of them all. You know, this is the one where you're like, holy crap, you know, like, what's going on? But I do think that The Last Crusade and Kingdom's kind of out there too. But I mean, hell, they all are. But I mean, I do want to tell you that I don't hate this movie. I really love this movie. Is it as good as Raiders? No. Again, I do think certain shots should have been edited a little differently, or certain actions could have been a little different. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good movie. I think it really balances the action and intensity. I mean, that scene where they're all chanting and you know, like that and all that, it's really funny. But it's intense at the same time. You know, I mean, I think Steven Spielberg and John Williams and Kathleen Kennedy, right? She did this too. They all did a really good job of, again, capturing that intense, you know, material and stuff that goes on, but also being funny at the same time. You know, like for you know, a dude ripping someone's heart out and getting punched and kicked and stabbed and shot and kids getting beaten and whipped and, you know, Indiana Jones turning on his friends and all this intense stuff. You have Willie falling off an elephant. Or the opening scene where they're kind of scrambling around and there's all these dancers. Or the opening scene with Willie, Scott, and all of her girls dancing. You know, when I first saw this, you know, when I wasn't a little stupid kid who didn't know what the F was going on, because I wasn't really allowed to watch these as a kid, which makes sense because they're not for kids, but my dad was like, watch it, you'll love it! And I don't really remember what the F was happening when I was a kid. I got scarred, I know that. But basically, the opening, you know, when you say Indiana Jones, you think of action or adventure or being the edge of your seat or comedic timing, right? Or great effects or whatever. You don't think of a dance sequence, you know what I mean? And that's what this movie opens with. It opens with the dance sequence. And it's, you know, I mean, it's well choreographed. You know, I'm not like a dance expert. I don't really care about it, but I think for what they were going for, it makes sense. It's you know, framed and shot really well. It's a good opening. But then it opens to, you know, Indiana Jones taking poison and punching guys and throwing, like, some kebab into a Chinese dude's, like, chest. It goes crazy really effing quick. And there's a little reference to Club Obi-Wan. You probably know about it, but one short round picks up Willie and Indy in the car, and he's driving the little thing. You know, it's a great entrance, by the way, because it's crazy, because you're thinking to yourself, how can this get any more, like, you know, what the fudge? And all of a sudden they fall into a car, and there's like an 8-year-old Chinese kid driving, and you're like, I didn't expect that. You know what I mean? Like, you got me. And he's driving. You know, it's a good entrance, but yeah, they do pass up Club Obi-Wan, which is a Star Wars reference. But there's a lot of, again, well-timed humor. There's a specific shot or a specific scene where Indiana Jones and Willie are kind of arguing, you know, and it's kind of, it could get a little overly cliche and overly cheesy, but I think it did stop at the right time, where Indiana Jones is like, oh, I'll give you 5 minutes, and she's like, I'll give you 5, and then he looks at his clock, and she looks at her clock, and Indiana Jones is kind of bored on his bed, and she's looking all, trying to get all sexy for him, you know. It's a really funny, kind of overt of the genre that they're going for, you know what I mean? It's like, he's getting ready, he's just like, okay, and she's, you know, looking all hot. It's just funny because they're both doing the same thing, but it's a little bit different. It's kind of like the dyad in Star Wars, but a little bit more comedic. And like I said, it's a good movie, you know what I mean? I don't think this movie deserves hate. I do think that it is not as good as the original. I don't think any of the rest are. Who knows? I'll have to, again, I'm rewatching them really for the first time, looking at them like critic-wise. But I liked it, you know what I mean? It had pretty good special effects. The one scene that kind of looked a little iffy was the bridge scene, because you can't actually have your actors on an effing bridge with alligators and water, because if they fall, they're dead, and you're sued, and you're going to jail. But essentially what they did is, you know, they have like these different, it's not CGI, but it's like matte paintings, you know, what they did for like the original trilogy in Star Wars. Is like they have like a really crazy backdrop, and it'd literally just be a freaking painting, and then you just like comp in your actor in it. So, and you can tell, I had this exact same problem with the first one, where, you know, characters look very outlined, or kind of stop motion-ish, or like very high dynamic range, you know, they have very high definition, and the environment doesn't. So, you know, you can tell when they're not in real danger, but I think, other than that, a few of the shots, it's a great movie, you know what I mean? It really holds up. It is the cheesiest out of all 4 so far. I don't think Indiana Jones 5 is going to be cheesy. If anything, it's probably going to be the darkest and most violent. But I do think that while this is cheesy and kind of like, wow, this is kind of out there, that's the point, you know what I mean? That's literally the whole crux of Indiana Jones. So I don't really understand people that say it's too much. And we'll get to the other 2 in a little bit here, but in future videos. But again, going forward, I think it's really well timed. I think Steven Spielberg, if anything, he's the master of adventure. He's the master of action and adventure, not just action. I think that would be Matthew Vaughn. But I do think Steven Spielberg is a really freaking good director. And it's hard to do this, but every single scene in this movie, like the scene where Indiana Jones is fighting that big dude on like the, kind of like the, I don't know what it's called, like the effing thing they're sliding on, and there's like a big rolling thing, I don't know what it's called. But basically they're fighting on it, and you want to tell your audience, and you want to tell your audience that they're in danger, right? You don't want to be like, oh, what's happening? You know, where are they fighting? But Steven Spielberg literally makes a point to show you the rolling thing that's going to effing kill them. Like, you know, you're making dough, it's literally going to kill them. So there's a lot of great stuff in there, and Indiana Jones really knows how to, or Steven Spielberg really knows how to, you know, kind of show the audience that the real peril is there, you know. And it's a good movie. So again, not the best. You can tell when something's fake. I get it, it's old, but you do notice. I'm sure you noticed back then. The shots linger a little bit too long sometimes, and that one shot with Willie kind of screaming is a little bit too out there. But other than that, it's a great movie. It's not as good as the first one, but it is very well recommended. It is a good movie, and I think it fits perfectly within the franchise. I think it gets too much hate. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next video, and I'll probably give it, let's see, I'll give it an A-. How about that? We'll give it an A-. Thank you guys, and for real now, we'll see you guys in the next video.